Let's get to Nicole Johnston now. She is live with us from Gaza. Nicole, if you would, what is the latest? Are the Israeli airstrikes continuing overnight?
Yes, they've been continuing all night. Sometimes it's about every 10 to 15 minutes. Occasionally there'll be a lull where we don't hear anything for about half an hour. But it does seem to be a pretty consistent attack all night throughout the Gaza Strip. The latest information that we have is in the last few minutes we have heard about an airstrike. You probably just heard one of those airstrikes that I mentioned. This is pretty much the sound that we've been getting every 10 to 15 minutes here. But as I was saying, we just had an airstrike in Jazeera refugee camp, and we're hearing that 10 women and children have been injured. No reports of deaths there yet, but certainly a lot of people injured from that airstrike.
Nicole, that was huge. Can you gauge how close that was to your location?
Not really. The sound really does reverberate throughout the Gaza Strip. So sometimes you'll hear an airstrike. It might be in Jazeera refugee camp in North Gaza, which is a good 10 or so kilometres away. But that one did sound very close. It was certainly louder than some of the other ones that we've heard. But we have had a few that have been that loud, and I would imagine they're inside Gaza City, as opposed to the north or the east.
And as you're hearing that, and we're hearing it from your location, it's probably useful to remind folks just how densely populated Gaza is.
It is. Everywhere you look, pretty much. It's very tall buildings, packed in apartment buildings, or in the refugee camps, very low-lying, small brick houses, tiny, narrow streets. The Gaza Strip, just to remind our viewers, is only 40 kilometres long. At its widest, we're talking 7 to 10 kilometres. So it's a tiny area of land with 1.5 million people packed in here. So most people won't be getting much sleep tonight. You can also hear the constant sound of drones buzzing above. But really, for me at least, the drones are nothing compared to the sound of the airstrikes, which, as I said, is maybe every 15 minutes, maybe every half an hour. The other sound that you get, which we haven't had for the last couple of hours, but we did have earlier in the night, was the sound of shelling from the Israeli naval vessels which docked off the coast of Gaza. You could hear them pounding the coastline of Gaza. It's a very different noise. It's quite distinct. It's more of a quieter thud, but certainly loud enough as well.
Nicole, what's that buzz? Is that the sound of the drones overhead? I can faintly make it out.
Yes, that's the sound of the drones. It's constant. It doesn't stop during the day. It doesn't stop during the night. Sometimes it's a little bit more intensive, but it just continues. And these drones, just to remind people, some of these drones are surveillance drones. They're keeping an eye on Gaza. They're pinpointing targets or vehicles. They've got all of the Gaza Strip under surveillance. And some of the other drones actually can carry out airstrikes. So sometimes the airstrikes are not carried out by F-16s alone. Some of them are from drone strikes as well.
Nicole, I want to try this. I just want to give our viewers who are watching us right now a sense of that sound. I'm just thinking about the 1.6 million people who are there, and what they may be living with right now. And this sound overhead, is there a chance that if we pause for a second, we'll be able to clearly hear the sound of the drones overhead?
We can try.
Let's try it. Let's just try it. We'll pause for just a couple of seconds so that maybe everyone can hear the sound of the drones overhead there in Gaza. And that's the sound of drones, correct?
That's correct. Possibly in the distance, you can also hear an F-16 or the trailing end of an F-16. They're flying over Gaza. They fly in, they fly out. Sometimes they're louder and you can hear them as they're leaving. But the constant buzz that you hear is a drone.
Yeah.
Or drones.
Nicole, one more question here. Anyone talking ceasefire?
The information that we're getting is that there have been ceasefire talks going on in Cairo for the last couple of days. Hamas is saying that it won't agree to a ceasefire until Israel lifts the siege on Gaza, opens the borders and ends its policy of so-called targeted assassinations in Gaza. This is taking out not only leaders of Hamas and Hamas's military wing, but also the leaders of some of the other militant groups inside Gaza. The information we're getting from Egyptian sources is that for Israel that's a red line, and it fully intends on continuing that policy when it feels there's a threat coming from Gaza.
All right, Nicole, as we leave you, we just want to hear the sound again overhead at your location there in Gaza. But Nicole, thank you, and let's have a listen. And as Nicole was mentioning just a moment ago, you've got a mix here.
Hi.
Yeah, let's just kill Nicole's mic. You've got a mix going on now. You've got the drones overhead, maybe a jet as well, but let's just listen. And an ambulance responding to that loud airstrike from just moments ago during Nicole's report. Boy, that was dramatic. Boy, that was loud. And you hear the ambulance, in all likelihood, responding to that airstrike as the drones drone on overhead. A few more seconds of this. Gaza City in the overnight hours as the Israeli airstrikes continue. We will continue to monitor the situation there.